One final question. Where are you going after the game tonight?
Tonight I'm going to the Berwyn Summerfest.
Okay. Ron, one more final question before you go into your hitters meeting. Where are you going after the game tonight?
I'm going to Berwyn Summer Fair.
All right.
Come out and see us.
Fantastic. Let me ask you a final question here. Where are you going after the game tonight?
Berwyn Summer Fair.
All right. You're the fifth one.
Thank you. You still feeling all right out there? I hear you say, woo! We want to thank you for putting us in the driver's seat today. We hope you had a good ride, and this is the vehicle that got us here today.
Welcome back, sports fans. I'm Jim Kapsa. This is Rich Nye and Bob Considine, and we're doing this show 9 days before Christmas. So on the count of three, we want to wish you a 3, 2, 1, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We did it. We've got a full show for you today, and Rich and Bob both have their expertise on a couple of subjects that we're going to be covering. And I'll run this past you real fast because I want you to know who you're going to be seeing on the show today besides the three of us. And we're going to be featuring Ryne Sandberg, George Brett, and Brooks Robinson, 3 Hall of Famers. And we're going to be featuring 2 friends of mine, Roland Heeman, who has been gone a couple of years now, but he was one of the most respected men in all of baseball, 3-time General Manager of the Year, and a man that he hired in January 1978, right out of Western Michigan University, Dave Dombrowski, who was the president of the Philadelphia Phillies. And before that, he was the president of the Miami Marlins and Boston Red Sox and Detroit Tigers. So you're gonna hear from Dave Dombrowski in a classic interview that I did about 11 years ago. But right now, I want to tell you that the Bears have not had one of their best seasons. Maybe I don't even have to mention it. And I was actually considering not even talking about the Bears today, but Rich and Bob convinced me we've got to do something for the Bears fans. So I said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a short video clip of 2 of their favorite players, Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers. Take it away.
From the University of Illinois came linebacker Richard Marvin Butkus.
Give me 18 inches of daylight. That's all I need.
And from the University of Kansas arrived running back Gale Eugene Sayers, the Kansas Comet. And his groundbreaking and game-breaking talent shined like a supernova. Dick Butkus was in a world of his own, the most ferocious defender of his time. One was silky smooth, the other a bit rough around the edges. For most of a decade, these 2 players defined the new generation in the NFL.
All right, shift to 44 to a 56 stack, pow. Watch the play action, let's go.
Dick Butkus was both feared and revered by his peers.
I call him a maniac. Stone maniac.
I don't understand it. I don't understand why they say things like that.
He was the greatest intimidator that ever played football.
You had to overcome the mystique. It was almost like an odor. He exuded a kind of a presence.
Roses are red and violets are blue. If you got any sense, you'll keep Butkus away from you. He was an animal, and every time he hit you, he tried to put you in the cemetery, not the hospital.
I'm not sure. I think Butkus ate him. You remember Butkus grunted a lot and growled a lot when he was backing up the line. And we sent this rookie center in to play for us, and the first time he came off, his eyes were about like this. He couldn't believe what he was hearing from Butkus. Butkus had him intimidated. He hadn't even blocked him yet.
You play the Bears, and I've heard it myself from different people, is that they better get ready, you know, and that's all the respect that I need. If I was an animal, jerk, gasser, or whatever, I didn't care.
He came to play, and it probably made me a better football player by competing against him in practice because he was tough.
You can tell when a guy's going to be a great linebacker by his attitude. He's got it. You knew that Butkus had it right from the beginning. Butkus was tough. The name, it fits. It fits. You don't want to put a nice guy over there playing defense. You look for that attitude that the great ones have, and Butkus had it from the beginning.
A knee injury shortened his brilliant career, yet he has a bronze bust in the Hall of Fame and remains the gold standard of linebackers.
See that guy right there? You know who that is, huh?
What's that?
There.
Who was that?
Dick Butkus.
Oh, yeah.
Dick Butkus. He was bad, man.
Yeah.
He was nasty, boy. He was nasty.
Gale Sayers, in his rookie year, turned in perhaps the greatest single-game performance of all time. On a muddy field, Sayers streaked through the San Francisco 49ers for a record-tying 6 touchdowns.
I knew where I was going, and they didn't. It was just, one of those days you like to relive over and over again. One of those days that happens once in a lifetime.
The game capped a season in which Sayers set a rookie record with 22 touchdowns.
I didn't know that 6 touchdowns was tied to record. I didn't know that. I just did it. It was, a great game.
It's perhaps the most indelible memory of Sayers. No fan will forget Sayers' single-game domination. Choosing a single Sayers run as the best is almost impossible. But one in particular stands out in number 40's mind.
The run that I made in probably 1967 against the Baltimore Colts. I go around the right end, come back to the left end, and see a little gap and go up the middle. Boom, for about a 65-yard touchdown. That, signifies Gale Sayers. That run, I just enjoy seeing it.
In only 7 years, Sayers created an enormous catalog of runs that are a joy to see.
I had the quickness, and the ability to see a hole and get there. Usually when I cut, the next step is usually I was almost going full speed again. I just had that ability to do that.
His ability to elude tacklers was no joke and elicited admiration from all who saw him.
I thought I saw him an amoeba-like, or paramecium, split into 2 things, and the defensive people went at the wrong one.
He's a God-given talent, no doubt about it. I had great peripheral vision. There's no doubt about that. I could see everybody on the field. And so I knew where to run, where to cut. In the same way, I had a feel for where people were, because I know many times, many runs, when I look at films, there'd be a fella coming from my blind side, and no way I could see him, but I could feel him.
And he gave me a fake like this here, and my body went one way, my mind went the other way, and something happens to your motor when that happens. It's hard to explain. But my legs went limp, and I had nothing left. But the only problem he made was he went one too many fakes and came right back into me, and I hit him and knocked him down. He said, "Nice tackle, Floyd." And I want to say, I couldn't even tackle if I wanted to. You ran into me.
Well, we're back, and I could still feel Dick Butkus tackling me. Like you saw in that video, I would hate to be one of the opposing players of the Chicago Bears when Butkus and Sayers were in their prime. And Rich is going to show us a couple of the things that he did his woodworking on, a very important baseball that's important to Rich, and when he faced Tom Seaver on the baseball field. But first, let me ask Bob Considine, what do you think about our Bears having one of their worst seasons, and what can they do to get better?
Well, I think unlike the White Sox, who may not have any hope in the future, near future anyway, I hope they do. Chicago Bears in the middle of turmoil. I believe, and I maybe Rich, you'll agree with me on this, that when you have a team like the Bears, they have a really, really good young quarterback. However, when you have a young quarterback coming right out of college football, you need an older quarterback to kind of tutor him a little bit. Not only as a quarterback, but also an older linebacker to help the linebacking program also. And with that being said, they always have time to come back and talk to the old timers. Like Richie would have made a beautiful and outstanding pitching coach. Sometimes you need the old timers there, just like in business, if you have a machine shop, or we're going to go into wood turning, you need someone with experience there to lay down some of the things that aren't written for these new athletes, woodworkers, people in business as well. I think that's where kind of the Bears, do they have the talent there? Yes, they have a lot of talent there. It's just kind of organizing it. One. Two, now they have a new coach that's their interim coach. And now there's a lot of old-time coaches out there. One, I'll bring up Mike Shanahan, who is actually a Chicago guy. Mike has proven himself. Why would you not want to call someone like Mike Shanahan and a few of the other old-time coaches in to say, hey, we're making a mistake here. We need some old-time experience. One. Second point is the Bears are going to go back and they're going to look at their game films. The game films that they have are not up to standard. Why don't you switch over and look at Kansas City's game film?
Yeah.
See what they're doing right. We have Komet, they have Kelsey. There's not much different.
They have Taylor Swift too, don't they?
Well, on occasion. On occasion. So they both have great players there. Why does one get open all the time and the other doesn't? So you have to look at the winning footage on their game films to see. Put yours in the closet. Let's see. What are the winners doing? What are the winning baseball teams doing? Take a look at what they're doing.
That's what the White Sox should be watching, right?
Well, the White Sox should be watching. And we've talked about this many, many times, Rich. Why is it that the Dodgers always have a successful program?
Because they're always signing good players like Blake Snell.
Well,
they just got a Cy Young Award-winning pitcher.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So why is it that they do that and some of the other teams just can't get on the rails? Why is that?
What do you think, Rich? Get you involved here.
You mentioned the Dodgers, and I just say the Dodgers going way back into down into their farm system, they've always stressed fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamentals for them are hitting, running, throwing, and pitching. And the hitters aren't getting up to the plate and trying to hit home runs all the time. They're very happy to make contact, not strike out, take the extra base, know the fundamentals, know where they're going to throw the ball when they get it. And you mentioned the apprenticeship type program in baseball. I see that a problem has arisen because of the amount of money they're paying each individual player. It goes back to a time when I was playing and we had a hitting coach that he knew fundamentals and he knew how to pick out a flaw that a batter was doing in his and how to correct it for him. But he said, I'm a 220 hitter, lifetime. Who's going to listen to me? These kids are making more money than he ever made. Well, now we're talking about kind of money that you can't even imagine making. And who are they going to listen to? An old guy that played 50 years ago that didn't make any money, even though he may know the fundamentals.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
I
It's
remember,
a tough thing.
Yeah, Rich, you're absolutely right. I remember when we were playing in Arizona, and I was hitting third. Jose Cardinal, who's a famous, great ball player, played with Richie. I said, Jose, what am I doing wrong? I'm struggling a little bit. He says, Bobby, you're making hitting way too difficult. If the ball's outside, hit it to right field. If it's coming up the plate, hit it up the middle. If it's inside, hit it out of the park. What's so hard about batting?
See the ball, hit the ball.
What he broke it down to the very, very basics that I could understand. And it was wonderful, and it changed everything. It changed absolutely everything.
Well, Ryan Sandberg, who's coming up on one of our video clips, I had him on my show 4 times, and one of the things that I'll never forget is he said, I said, what do you attribute your success to? He says, well, if the ball's outside, I hit it to the opposite field.
That's exactly
Hit
it.
the ball where it's pitched and try to hit a line drive.
It's a big field, right?
Yeah, you
It's
don't
a
have
big
to try
field.
to hit a home run every time up. I think that's one of the Cubs' problems last year anyway, last season.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these guys were trying to hit, it seemed like to me, they were trying to hit a home run every time they were up there.
Well, absolutely, and the thing with and I believe the Cubs really had and we talked about it earlier in an earlier show, the Cubs really had a good ball club.
Oh, they did.
But the difference between a good ball club and a great ball club is, Rich, you have to win those one-run ball games,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And as a pitcher, you have to throw strikes.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the Cubs can improve. The White Sox, it's gonna take them quite a bit to
Little bit
reorganize
longer. The Cubs are
absolutely
getting
everything.
close. I think the Cubs are getting
I think the
close.
Cubs are. What do the Cubs need? Maybe a catcher, a closer for sure, and maybe a couple more pitchers.
How about this guy? Kyle Tucker. The Cubs just landed a 3-time All-Star right fielder. Kyle Tucker from the Houston Astros. They had to give up 3 up-and-comers to get this guy, but he's a Cub this year, and I think behind the scenes they're working on his contract runs out at the end of this season.
Right.
He's going to be a free agent. I think that the Cubs signed him because they're already working on a deal, for a bigger deal for him, starting with the 2026
Well,
season.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then, and I think the Cubs had a really good outfield last year.
Yeah.
What do you do with them? Who do you sit?
Well, Bellinger, there's rumors that Bellinger might be traded. They want to have Pete Crow Armstrong in center field, and they've got Ian Happ in left. Do we need Ian Happ in left? He won a couple of Gold Gloves. But he's the senior Cub right now. You know, now that Hendrick, the pitcher, is not with them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Bellinger. I like Bellinger in center field. You can pull him in. He can play first base.
Yeah.
To me, he's a good guy to have on the team. He would be a good teammate.
Yeah.
So you're going to disrupt the whole outfield in the Cubs, bringing someone other when it really doesn't have to be disrupted.
Yeah.
My opinion. I would go after a catcher, and I'm not telling the Cub management what to do, but
why not?
I would go after a catcher, and definitely a closer.
They've got a good catcher coming up, Miguel Amaya.
But
he
again,
was a good rookie last year.
coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Well,
he's an older catcher to tweak him a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think about that? You think Kyle Tucker's they're supposedly going to bat him third?
In Wrigley Field, that is one of the things that you look at historically. Teams come in, and a lot of guys, they've changed their swing a little bit because of the fences, the walls, the home run distance, and you look at Ryan Sandberg again, hitting home runs, hits 40 home runs, and most of those balls that he's hitting to get his averages are line drives.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Good
point.
And I know Bobby hit home runs. I know I hit home runs in playing men's senior baseball, and I was never swinging like that. All I want to do is hit the ball in the nose.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing better than that feeling of hitting a line drive on a wood bat.
So true.
Right. It just
so true.
Feels so good.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the Cubs right now, and we might as well put that video clip in. You're going to see Ryan Sandberg, and you're going to see George Brett and Brooks Robinson, who I think was the best third baseman of all time. So take it away with the latest film clip. These are all classic interviews of 3 Hall of Famers.
Brian Sandberg is the latest home run hitter on the Chicago Cubs, and I know you've been asked this question before, and I already know the answer, but for our youngsters out there, are you going for home runs when you go up there?
No, not at all. That's not really really the style of my hitting. When I hit home runs, it's times where I just get my pitch to hit, and I have a good swing at it and get the ball up. And yesterday was one of those days where the wind's blowing out a little bit, and I just happened to hit a couple balls good up in the air, and they're home runs here at Wrigley.
Hit the ball where it's pitched, right?
That's what I try and do. If the pitch is away from me, then I have more success hitting it the other way or up the middle. And when I do that, then I'm staying within myself, and I hit the way that I'm supposed to hit, and then I'm successful.
Now that's a term that we've heard an awful lot. Players use that term, staying within myself or having an idea up there. What is your definition of staying within yourself?
Well, I think first of all, you try and figure out what your job is in the lineup, and I'm hitting second in the lineup, and I think it's my job to get on base, and to get on base, you take walks, you take base hits, and that's what I try and do. I just try and hit line drives and get on base, and then we have the true power hitters coming up behind me.
But we're doing a special on the Chicago White Sox, but it certainly wouldn't be complete without a member of the opposition, and of course, Kansas City Royals star third baseman is George Brett. George, did you bring
didn't tell me this for the White Sox. See you later.
Did you bring your bat with you, George?
I brought a bat. This isn't my bat.
That's
my bat's buried in the bat case, and the bat boy's still trying to find it.
Okay, the reason I asked him, I was going to take a look at that bat, and I was going to check the pine tar. That whole rigmarole, you're probably tired of talking about it by now, but it's got to bring a smile to your face, doesn't it?
Well, with the end results, yes. When the whole commotion was going on, I was a madman. I just blanked out. I didn't know what I was doing. For about 20 minutes after that game in New York, I was hyperventilating in the dugout or in the locker room. I almost fainted. That's how mad I was. And I very seldom get mad at this game because it's a silly game that we play. This is a stupid game. You go out here and you try to have fun and help your team win. And if you don't win, you're trying to analyze why you didn't win and maybe correct it for the next game. But that was just a series of circumstances that I want to forget, and I had forgotten it until you brought it up.
Gee, now I got him mad at me. I wish I would have known beforehand, but seriously, the pine tar actually has nothing to do with the flight of the ball. A friend of mine asked me, he said, if you get to talk to Brooks Robinson, ask him how he made all those diving catches. Did he have glue in his glove?
It's a sense of timing you have to have. I mean, you can work at it and make some improvements on things you don't do, but I've always felt like I had that sense of timing just to be where the ball was, even in basketball as a high school basketball player. And that's kind of a God-given talent more than anything else, that sense of timing to get the jump on the ball. And listen, Boog Powell had more stolen bases than I did, so it wasn't my speed, but I had the very quick reactions. I started out as a second baseman, and about 50 games into my first year, when I was 18 years old, they said, hey, in the long run, we think third base is going to be your position. You have great reflexes, great 1, 2, 3 steps like that, and at third base, it's a reflex position. So they made the right move, and I got a little stronger and became a pretty good hitter, so things worked out well.
Yeah, they sure did for you, and it worked out well for the Baltimore Orioles, too, because Brooks Robinson, nobody can touch him. I get the impression that you would have played for the love of the game.
Oh, I tell you.
I mean, you're just a baseball player.
I never wanted to do anything else. I kind of tagged along after my dad, who was a very good player, a semi-pro player. In fact, in 1938, right here at Soldiers Field, he played for the World's Championship fast pitch softball.
Really?
And that goes back to 38. So he loved baseball, and that's where I was really. I got my interest in the game, and I never wanted to do anything else.
Now, what do you think about the salaries that are being thrown around these days? I mean, are you a little bit slightly envious?
Sure. I would have loved to be a bit, but it doesn't bother me. You know, the way I look at it is, hey, if the importance of your job dictated how much you were going to make, then the baseball player would be at the bottom of the heap. But we live in a society where entertainers and athletes are going to make more than anyone else, just a fact of life. And that's what baseball is, it's entertainment. So I don't have any problems with it. I think the owners, when I played the game, the owners ran the game, and now the players are running the game. But that's just the way it is. Everyone's making a lot of money, so I'm happy for them. I got a great pension out of the game of baseball. I played, as I say, I played part of all of 23 years, so I couldn't be happier. I still follow the game. I enjoy it very much. So it's been great.
Well, you'd command a $150 million contract
I don't know about
if
that.
you were playing. You know, somebody asked Babe Ruth one time, I think it was when he signed his first $100,000 contract, what makes him think he deserves $100,000? The president of the United States doesn't even get. He says, I had a better year than the president.
That's right. Right.
Well, you had a better year most years than all of the ball players in Major League Baseball, and it's a real honor for us to have you on our show, and I thank you very much, and very much good luck to you in the future.
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much,
Nice being
Brooks.
with you.
Okay, we're back, and my favorite quote from Brooks Robinson of all time, it was one of my favorite interviews of 36 years of doing a TV show, is when I asked him about what he thinks, is he a little bit envious about all the players nowadays making millions of dollars, and he says, oh sure, he's envious, but he's satisfied. He got a nice pension playing 23 years all with the same team, the Baltimore Orioles, and he said, if the importance of your job based your salary on that, the players in baseball or any sport would be at the bottom of the list. But in today's society, entertainers and athletes make the most money. That's just the way things are. And he says, God bless them. Let them make all the money they can. I thought that was a magnanimous thing for him to say.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah,
I guess.
can't argue with that.
To a point.
Yeah.
To a point.
Right.
Well, let's get back to Rich. You wanted to talk a little bit about that baseball and that card and Tom Seaver. So show it to the fans, and Tom will get a nice close-up. Our producer over there, Tom.
This is a signed baseball card. I didn't have the ball with me to get Tom to sign that. But the ball says 11 innings versus Tom Seaver, drove in the winning run in the 11th. So that was a ball that I have saved from the year 1962 when I was pitching at University of California, Berkeley, and Tom was playing at USC, University of Southern California.
He was a decent hitter too, right? You were both
Absolutely,
decent hitters.
absolutely. Tom was a decent hitter, I'll tell you. And anyway, 11th inning, I knocked in the winning run, and I beat him 2-1 in 11 innings. Both of us, complete games. And I was telling that story to my golf foursome at a golf outing we had a number of years ago, and Tom was the celebrity that had been joined to play at the golf outing to play on the par 3 course, and you beat the pro kind of thing. And I was talking about that particular story about me hitting that, and he said, oh, have you told them about the ball you pitched to me in Shea Stadium where I got my first major league home run off you?
He stuck it to you.
And he stuck it to me. He got back at me, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. It's a great story. Great story.
And what I'm always asked to do is bring things from what I'm doing now. What I'm doing now, besides being a vet, very, very, very part-time, I make wood things on a lathe. So I turn them so that they turn and they're hollowed out and they're carved. And like a seed pod that we have here. So that's all hollowed, carved, painted. And then I like to call this my spermatozoa. It's also hollow, but it does have a little squiggly tail on it. Again,
looks like it could be alive.
It could be. And these are just, wooden things that I love to make. I'd love to create stuff. And
well, tell the viewers out there that these are for sale, right?
Oh, absolutely. These are all for sale. Right now, I'm with the Fox Valley Gallery of Wood. We are working on that website. If you want to contact me, I'm on Instagram, and it's at LOOIEN14. So it's at LouisN414, LouisN14. That's my moniker there, and you can see a number of things. And just send me a direct message, and I will respond.
That's great. That information will be on at the end of the show too. Bob, do you have anything to add on the end of the credits at the end of the show? Or
I have really nothing to add than what we've.
Well, the reason I ask is Bob, we haven't mentioned it on today's show, we have in the past, but Bob is an actor. And he was an outstanding baseball and football player in college and could have signed a pro contract. He's too humble to say it, but he was a heck of a pitcher. Not quite as good as Rich.
No, not as good.
But Bob was at Illinois State University.
And went on the fire department then.
And 34 years as a firefighter, he was protecting everybody in the suburbs of Chicago. So
it was a good run.
Yeah,
it was a good run. Was lucky enough to be invited to play with Richie with our traveling Cub team at the time from MSBL.
You guys won the World Series,
and we won
MSBL World Series.
Run a couple World Series, and pretty much that's all. You know, that's pretty much about it for me.
And the reason I said that is because Bob is a character, he plays characters on 3 very popular television shows, all taped at CineSpace in Chicago. Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, and Chicago Med. Is that the name of the third one?
Yeah. That is correct.
So we've got a TV star right here, not just on this show, but on 3 TV shows that are seen around the country on a regular basis. Well, getting back to baseball again, because this is the primary focus of our show today, baseball, even though we're in the football season. Mm-hmm. But I ripped this out of the Sun-Times, a 1-page article about Dick Allen. Don't call me Richie. He liked to be called Dick Allen. Overdue Allen voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame by the Classic Membership Committee. Is that what they're called, Rich?
Yep.
16 people well-versed in baseball, Major League Baseball, and voted Dick Allen in. My old friend Roland Heyman was the general manager of the White Sox in 1972, and he actually traded to get Dick Allen, and a couple of other general managers told him at that time, maybe you better not trade for Dick Allen because we've heard some things about him. He's not good in the clubhouse and this and that. Well, Roland was smart enough not to listen to those people, and he signed Dick Allen, who became the most valuable player in the American League with the White Sox in 1972, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. So that tells you something about both of those guys.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And if I recall, Dick Allen had one of the biggest, heaviest bats.
He did.
In the. Do you know more about what size or anything?
I don't know that, but I do know he liked to swing at bad pitches too.
Well,
so did Yogi Berra. He's in the Hall of Fame.
It was a 40-inch, 42-ounce.
Is that right?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
By today's standards,
that's a log.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I happened to be in my short time with St. Louis Cardinals, Dick was on the team at that time, and he and Bob Gibson were taking batting practice one day. Bob was pitching that afternoon, and they were taking batting practice, and both of them were batting left-handed. Now they're both right-handed hitters, right?
Yeah.
And Dick Allen was, and I was standing by the cage for some reason, don't know why, and I was watching him hit, and Dick was hitting balls in the upper deck in St. Louis Stadium, Busch Stadium.
Busch Stadium. Yeah.
Hitting left-handed, all foul. I mean, all foul so far you'd lose sight of them, right? And after that episode was over, I said, Dick, why aren't you switch hitting? He said, because I can't keep the ball fair. My bat is so quick, I can't keep the ball fair.
Gosh.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Maybe he was a natural lefty and never.
Or at least a switch hitter. I mean,
switch
he's
hitter.
a great athlete. I mean, he's a good base runner. A lot of things that they talk about with his, and I think just like Ron Santo not getting in when he was available to get in, a lot of that has to do with a perception that the press would have.
Right.
And the press are the ones that are on that writers committee. The press didn't like Santo. They didn't get along with him. Therefore, they didn't vote him in. Bias. It's very unfortunate.
Dick Allen had some enemies in the press, too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, he wouldn't talk to the press.
Yeah.
He would go back into his little cubbyhole in Philadelphia, at least. He had his own little locker way back underneath the stands, not next to anybody at all.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
And he would come in frequently. He'd come in late to the ballpark. Amazing. I mean, it causes dissension if you don't know how to manage that. And obviously...
But Roland said that he was a good teammate.
Oh, absolutely. But I can't think of the name of the manager at the time. I forgot the White Sox manager, but...
Chuck Tanner, I think.
Yeah, Chuck just knew how to manage him, knew how to play him, and got him involved in the team. And again, what makes a winner is having 25 guys pulled together as a team, not to have little cliques here and there.
It's so true.
This is a good time for us to inject another video clip that I know you're going to like, because we're talking to Dave Dombrowski, who, as I told you earlier, is the president of the Philadelphia Phillies right now, but he's the former president of the Marlins, the Tigers, and the Red Sox. So here's a guy that is well respected in baseball, and he was signed in January '78 to be a starting executive with the White Sox. And that's Dave Dombrowski. And after that, you're going to see my friend, and he's smiling down at us from above, but one of the best executives in the history of Major League Baseball, Roland Heeman. Take it away. Now we're honored to have with us a gentleman who was at one time the youngest general manager in Major League Baseball, Dave Dombrowski. Dave, thanks for being on our program.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I have to say that you were probably one of the more fortunate people in Major League Baseball, because you came in and joined the White Sox under Roland Heeman, the face of baseball, probably the nicest guy in all of baseball.
Well, there's no question. Sometimes you look back at your career and when you've had opportunities, and sometimes you're very fortunate. In my case, I couldn't have been any more fortunate when you have somebody like Roland Heeman to start under him and actually be my mentor and take me every step of the way, not only about baseball, but about life in general. You just couldn't be any more fortunate.
Well, you started right out of college, if I'm not mistaken, about 22 years old?
Yes, I did. Yes, I was 21 years old. I was out of Western Michigan University, and I started with the White Sox in January of 1978. And I started in player development and scouting as administrative assistant at that point, and then worked my way up. But Roland was the guy that was the general manager at that time and took the time to basically teach me every step of the way. So it's a long time ago, but very, very fortunate.
I looked at your front office personnel. You have listed 16 people that head your scouting departments in various parts of the world, and you don't even list your scouts themselves. How many scouts do you have in addition to those 16 leaders?
Well, we have a lot of them, and we believe in it a great deal. We have I'd say there's about 18 full-time scouts around the United States, and then we have our national cross-checkers, which we have 3 of those, and then our regional cross-checkers, which we also have 3 of those. We have a scouting director, of course, and a vice president of scouting. So when you look at that in the United States, we have about 25 guys, plus a lot of part-time people then that help them, or bird dog type scouts. And then you start going internationally to Latin America, where we have dozens more, and then to the Far East we have people that had the Pacific Rim, Australia, and so you start talking about international scouting, and today it's very, very important, because you can find talent all over the world, and you need to be cognizant of that, and you can't leave any stone unturned. So when you start talking about the number of scouts we have, they're so numerous it's hard to keep exactly track of the exact number.
The reason we're here is sitting next to me right here, my good friend Roland Heeman, who I call the face of baseball. And it's such an honor for us to be talking with Roland Heeman. Roland, my personal congratulations. I've talked to you on the phone and given you my congratulations, but my personal heartfelt congratulations on receiving the very prestigious Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award. What an honor.
It certainly is one of the highlights of my career, without question. I was fortunate to get to know Buck O'Neil, and what a deep impression he made upon me as a gentleman, so gracious, so kind, and such a good baseball man who had managed and played in the Negro Leagues and became the first African-American coach with the Chicago Cubs, and was instrumental in bringing Ernie Banks and Lou Brock to the Cubs organization. And for me to stand at Cooperstown recently to receive that award was beyond description.
Executive of the Year 3 times, twice as the general manager of the Chicago White Sox and once as the general manager of the Baltimore Orioles. And the year that you achieved that honor with the Orioles, I believe you set some sort of, the team set some sort of a record from the least wins the previous year to the most wins. What was it, 32 games difference or something?
Yeah, 32 and a half games increase of improvement. The first year, we started off so badly, we lost 21 straight, set a new all-time record for an opening. But I used to console myself or keep my enthusiasm by saying, well, I inherited this, I didn't create it. So we'll have a lot of fun when we get it straight. And fortunately, we made a number of trades that winter, and Frank Robinson did a masterful job as manager, and we improved by 32.5 games and played Toronto in the final weekend. We had to win 2 out of 3. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pull that off, but it still was a very remarkable and rewarding year.
I have to mention one more very important thing that's near and dear to Roland's heart, and that is the Professional Baseball Scouts Foundation. Tell us about that. You were instrumental in starting that organization along with Dennis Gilbert, Dave Yoakum, and Harry Miner, right?
Yes, well, what happened, we were at a general manager's meeting and we were having breakfast, and when the book Moneyball came out, some of the clubs' ownerships bought into it right away, and 103 scouts were let go that winter, and it just broke my heart. Not for the right reasons, but somebody thought computers could do the work. And they're finding out it's a people game.
Right.
Computers to an extent, and you accumulate the data that it can provide you, but you're still dealing with the player who has the heart, the discipline, the winning type player, and not one who's just statistically minded to help his cause, but the club doesn't win. So, I mean, it's a combination, and no knock against what people believe in, and we utilize some of it as well, but it's still a people's game, and that's where you have to show respect to your players who have worked so hard once they sign. And we're watching young players working out here in early afternoon and working on the fundamentals of the game, and it's highly competitive. And every time a player with whom I've been associated from the time he signed and met his parents, so to speak, and know what they've gone through to get there, when they're introduced, I always get the goosebump because we know what it means to that young man. And then if he does well and becomes an all-star and a Hall of Famer, so much the better.
And we're back one more time, and we've got one more video clip left. But before we get into that, I think if you were watching the last 2 video clips of Dave Dombrowski and Roland Heeman, you can tell why those 2 guys are and Roland was 2 of the most respected men in the entire Major League Baseball world. 2 really great people. Just to know them, I feel honored. And actually, there's one more person that is a very honored individual who passed away about a little over 2 years ago, and that's Captain Eugene A. Cernan, the last man on the moon. He was the commander of Apollo 17, which was the last flight to the moon in December 1972. And this video clip is going to show you what a regular guy Gene Cernan was, because he was nice enough to come and be honored at the Czech American Community Center in Berwyn, Illinois. He's a Czech, of Czech descent. He had a Czech mother and a Slovak father, but he was born in the United States at St. Anthony Hospital in Chicago, where I was born, believe it or not. And he is very proud of his Czech heritage. But he gave a speech that I think is very apropos at this time of the year, 9 days before Christmas. And Gene Cernan was somebody that your friends in college knew very well, right?
Yeah, one of my fraternity brothers was in the Top Gun program. That's how he got into the service. And from that, he became an astronaut and made a couple of trips up in the shuttle. And I just reconnected with him on a jaunt back to UC Berkeley and visiting with some of my fraternity brothers at that time.
That's great. Reunion, huh?
Yeah, it was.
And they told you that Cernan was one of the people that they went on one of these flights with?
Oh, no, I don't know if he went on the flight. I
just
know that he got into that Top Gun program, and he said, they're flying F4s, and he said, it's crazy.
Well, tell the viewers about this GOAT thing that you were talking about.
Well,
GOAT, greatest of all time.
Well, I went back to Berkeley, and I was a member of the Pi Ka fraternity, Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, and that when I was in school, that was known as a jock house, right? A lot of athletes in there, And two of the athletes that were older than I was at the time were Larry Colton and Dave Dowling. Dave Dowling became an ophthalmologist, and he did that for many, many years. And Larry Colton became a writer. And one of the things he wrote was a book called Goat Brothers. And Goat Brothers had to do with University of California in the 60s. And because that's when I went to school there. And the goats were what they called us pledges going into the fraternity. We were just goats. And the book was a fabulous book. It covered a lot of the individuals that made up that fraternity at the time, and it did talk an awful lot about the politics going on at Berkeley.
Very good. Good story. And Gene Cernan, of course, wrote his own book called The Last Man on the Moon, an unusual title because that's exactly what he was. 52 years ago, as I said, December 1972, Gene Cernan was the last human being to set foot on the moon. And why should I say any more? Here's the video clip. We're going to introduce Captain Cernan right now, but I want to show everybody here the plaque that's going up. This will go, when we open our building, this will go in the conference center, and it's going to have a place of honor right here too. It's the Cernan Conference Center. And it shows on here, it says, I'll read it to you. Dedicated in honor of Captain Eugene A. Cernan, U.S. astronaut, Commander, Apollo 17, December 1972, the last man on the moon. He's the son of a Czech mother and a Slovak father. The 1963 NASA group. His missions were Gemini 9A in June 1966, Apollo 10 in May 1969, and Apollo 17 in December 1972. And we have one small plaque to go. I'd like to read this too. This is going to Captain Cernan. It says Chicagoland Czech American Community Center Award of Highest Honor, presented to Captain Eugene A. Cernan, U.S. astronaut, in recognition of exemplary lifetime service to country and community. Thank you. And here he is. Thank
you. I want to thank you all for coming. Believe it or not, I'm really overwhelmed to see all you folks here. I know you had something better to do than to come and see me, but I will. And I know you got a million questions. Unfortunately, we probably won't be able to answer them all here today. But I want you to know I am very proud of my Czech and my Slovak heritage. I was born an American. I'll always be an American, but my culture, of my family culture, goes back to both the Czech Republic and to Slovakia, and it's something I want you to know I'm extremely proud of. I've been back to Czech Republic on many occasions, and Slovakia. The first time was before the Velvet Revolution back in, I think it was probably 1974 or 75. And that was a very, very interesting trip for me because everyone in Prague, I remember specifically, knew who I was, but they could not acknowledge me at all. The folks in control of the country at that time wanted me to go back and visit with some of my family, and then when I got there, they wanted me to go to a big communist rally at that time, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm here to see my family," and they lived back there at that time almost as I remember growing up. I lived in Bellwood, Maywood, Broadview. Just like my mom, my aunts, my uncles, all lived as I grew up, the way I remember it. And this is a very familiar place. It's changed. But on my Bohemian side, all my mother's brothers and sisters all lived in Berwyn and Cicero and eventually Brookfield and Riverside. My dad only had one brother, and he lived in southern Illinois. So I was really attached and knew my mother's Bohemian family more than I did my dad's. My dad's grandparents had a farm up in north central Wisconsin where I spent a great deal of my time. And of course they lived up there like they lived in the old country, because my maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents, both sides, came over to Chicago around the turn of the century. So I'm second generation. Mom and Dad were both born here in Chicago, and I was born at St. Anthony Hospital, right?
My neighborhood.
And, well, I don't know exactly where it is, but that's where I was born. I went to Purdue. I graduated proviso, went to Purdue. My dream as a kid, and I try and instill some of the same dreams I had in kids of today, to inspire them to do things they didn't think they could do. And I just wanted to fly airplanes off aircraft carriers. I grew up as a kid during World War II, and those anonymous heroes of their time, I watched them make airplanes do the impossible, the things they weren't supposed to do, and I said, I want to do that. And there was no space program at that time. I know some of the younger folks in the audience find that hard to believe, but Buck Rogers was about as close as we got to space. Graduated from Purdue in '56, went to Pensacola, Navy flight training, out to the Western Pacific, flew off aircraft carriers. My dream come true, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And not too much later, I got a call asking me if I wanted to volunteer for the space program, for the Apollo program. And, not only yes, but heck yes. And I had no idea where that would lead, because then a big selection process took place. And there were some couple thousand people in the process at that time, and I was selected in 1963 to be one of 14. The group just before us included Jim Lovell, Apollo 13, Neil Armstrong, Tom Stafford, Frank Borman, some of those guys, and we were 1 year after them. And even at that point in time, no one ever guaranteed you get a chance to fly in space. There were no rules in terms of what might come of the space program or whatever. And I think even at that point in my life, if someone would have said I'd have a chance to walk in space, go to the moon twice, and call the moon my home for 3 days of my life, they probably would have put me in a straitjacket. I really believe it. And let me just answer one other question that I get asked a lot. What's the thing you remember most about having gone to the moon? And it's to look back at the Earth. I cannot tell you how overpowering it is to look back at the beauty and the overwhelming impact that the Earth itself has on you. Because as you head out to the moon, in Earth orbit you don't see the Earth. You see it's just slightly curved horizon. You head on out to the moon at 25,000 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the horizon closes in around upon itself, and you see something very strange and yet very familiar, because all of a sudden you realize out your window is being filled up with that spacecraft with the entirety of the Earth. And you can look from the turquoise blues of the Bahamas and the Caribbean across the east coast of the United States, the windswept plains, the mountains on the Rocky Mountains, into the deep dark blues of the Pacific, and you don't even have to turn your head or move your eyeballs. And the Earth grows smaller and smaller and smaller very quickly when you're heading out to the moon, until the point comes, and some of you may have seen Apollo 13, when you can literally cover the Earth up with something smaller than the palm of your hand, literally with the thumb. You can cover up your identity, what I call the identity with reality, with nothing bigger than the thumb on your hand. And something else happens. Something else is strange. Because as you head on out, North America and South America sort of disappear around the corner, and then comes up Asia, and Europe, and then the entire continent of Africa comes completely into view. You are looking at the other side of the world. You're no longer going around it like in Earth orbit. You fly around the Earth. Excuse me. It's those meatballs, those liver balls. You fly around the Earth every 90 minutes. You fly over a river, a coastline, cross the ocean in 15 minutes. But you're still part of the Earth. You're still only 150, 200 miles away. You might even get a glimpse of your own hometown if you're lucky. But when you head out to the moon, as I said, things do become different. And as you look back and watch that Earth rotate on an axis you can't see that must be there, and it moves with logic and with purpose beyond your conception. The Earth is surrounded by the blackest black. You're in daylight. This is a paradox on Earth. You're in daylight. You're looking at the sun shine on the Earth, and yet and everywhere else, and yet surrounding the Earth is a three-dimensional blackness. I didn't say it was dark. I said blackness. And I don't know, I can't show it to you, and I don't know what to really call it, but my recollection is that it's the infinity of space, the infinity of time, the endlessness of everything. And I guess people call that infinity, but it's just overwhelming. And it's a three-dimensional blackness. You can look that far alongside the Earth, and you can literally focus on that endlessness. And I can tell you it exists. I can't show it to you, but it's just because I saw it with my own eyes. And I had that experience on Apollo 10 when I went to the moon. And I came home after that, and I kept, it was just too beautiful to have happened by accident. There must be somebody bigger than you, some creator of this universe. I don't mean that to be a religious statement. You know, I'm Catholic. Most of us here probably are. We grew up in that culture. But above all religions, I think, and I accept anyone's way to worship their God, but is it truly, in my mind, a creator? And when I went back on Apollo 17, I challenged that thought. Only this time I had a chance to go all the way down to the moon. 10, we didn't land. And I was on the moon for 3 days. I came to the same conclusion that there must be something we don't understand, somebody bigger than the rest of us, a creator of this universe, a God, someone I choose to call God. And my way of getting there is through Jesus Christ. And I came home with the conclusion, after being on the moon, not only reinforcing my thoughts about the existence of a God, but the fact that I had been one of the few people in the history of mankind to have the opportunity to literally sit on God's front porch, looking back home at a small part of his creation, which includes this place we call home, this planet Earth. And I don't mind sharing those thoughts, because that's a feeling, that's a memory that will live in my mind until the day I'm no longer on this planet, and maybe thereafter, I'm not sure. Now, thank you. I don't know what your timing is.
Well, we have about 20 minutes, and we can. I'm sure Captain Cernan will be happy to answer a couple of questions. He has a book, I don't know if I mentioned that, The Last Man on the Moon. It was on the New York Times bestseller list. It's excellent. It's one of my favorite books now. And believe it or not, he left some initials on the moon in the dust. And I asked him about that. And then we'll ask a couple of questions, take a couple of questions from the audience. But what was your answer to the initials in the dust?
Well, that was my daughter, who was 3, 6, and 9 on my 3 respective flights. 9 on Apollo 17, and her name is Teresa Dawn Cernan. And I say somewhere up there, I know where they are, but someday someone will go up there, I expect, and where we lived for a while, and see the initials scribbled in the sand, Teresa Dawn TDC. Now you want to hear something funny about that? There is a television program. I watch sports and news, but there's a television program many of you probably know. Is it called Modern Family or something? About 6 or 8 months ago, I got all these emails, and I didn't know what they were about. I'd never heard of Modern Family. It turns out, apparently on Modern Family, maybe somebody saw it, there was a father who was trying to impress his young daughter. And everywhere he went, he took her to the zoo was closed. He took her to get a malted milk and the machine broke. Took her to get a hamburger and the waitress was a flippin'. And everything he did, he wanted to develop, a father's communication with his 12-year-old daughter or something. And I watched this on YouTube afterwards. And he said, I just want to be like Gene Cernan. And his daughter said, who in the heck is Gene Cernan? Okay. And he says, he's the last man who walked on the moon. Big deal, right? And then she said, what did he do? He's the last man who walked on the moon. And he put his daughter's initials in a lunar surface. Apparently that still didn't impress his daughter. He says, and every father hates Gene Cernan because they can't do the same thing.
Well, we're back one more time, and I thought that was very appropriate for this time of the year, a very inspirational speech by Captain Eugene A. Cernan, commander of Apollo 17. A great time for people to be very circumspect about how things are and how our world was created. And the clock on the wall says we've only got a short time left, so I think we'll end up with another comment or two about the Cubs and the White Sox. The Cubs, from what I understand, have made a big presentation to the #1 pitcher in Japan, a man by the name of Rocky Sasaki, who is in for a big payday from Major League Baseball, and the Cubs are after him. And I think that because the Cubs have 2 Japanese players, Seiya Suzuki and Shota Imanaga, I think we have a chance. What do you think, Bob?
I think we need a little help with the pitching, and
everybody needs pitching.
Yeah, that may kind of show. So what do they do with them? Do they have him a reliever? Is he going to be a starter?
Oh, he's a starter.
Relief for sure.
Yeah, he's a starter.
Well,
from what I read in the paper, I haven't talked to anybody personally about him, but he's probably the best pitcher ever to come out of Japan into Major League Baseball.
Well, that would be very welcomed in Chicago because we need another good starter, and I think to take that a step further, let's get a good closer, so we can win those 1-1 ball games.
Well, we definitely need a closer.
Yeah, you got to win those 1-1 ball games. As far as the White Sox go, again, it's ground zero. They're going to have to go out and start all over again and rebuild.
Well, they lost Garrett Crochet. They traded their best pitcher away. So, but they got, from what you read in the newspaper, they got 3 or 4 good minor leaguers for this one man. So, what do you think, Rich?
I am very optimistic about the Cubs' chances for a good year, and I think the Cubs and the Sox will be alive in 2025.
I like it. You remind me of Ernie Banks. He always came up with a rhyme at the end of the show.
Yes.
Well, I think the Cubs are going to be contending for first place in their division. The White Sox, they're going to move up 1 place in their division. And now we have to say goodbye. So on the count of 3, ready, guys? 3, 2, 1. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.